don't like. Jai Hare Krishna. Gauranga. Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Puranavasya Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gurunanavasya Bande Guru Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu ki Manasura Sena Romancha Kampasu Taranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Shri Vigrahara Yuktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Kridvaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Gavayara Param Madhurya Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Madhurya Lila Gunarupanamna Pratikshana Swa Danalalupasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Ne Kunja Yuno Pratikeri Siddhai Jayali Veri Jokti Apekshaniya Nikunja Yuno Pratikeri Siddhai Jayali Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Garashi Charanara Vrindam Satya Dharitena Samastashashrit Ruktastathava Vyataiva Sadhavi Sakya Dharit Kintu Prabhoja Priyaiva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadan Bhagavad Prasada Yasya Prasadan Dhyayam Stubham Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachattari Shattarine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pachattari Shattarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Tanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hariyaraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Shishi Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe. Radha. Jaya Jagana, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Pramanandi Hari Hari Haribo. Jai Vishwapara Param Satrabha Jagacharya Suttara Sarasishwar. His divine grace, Bhocharamna Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakachara Vaishnava Siromani Parit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Vargapati Tudhar ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Guna Sadghosh Swami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ji ki jai. Jayananta Kuru Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Prem si kaho si Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Deity Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Premanama Sankirtane ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavarana ki jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga ki jai. Jugadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihad Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopakutna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Shri Brajabim Vrindavan Mathura ki jai. The Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhav ki jai. Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradam ki jai. Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smas Bhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kan Shringare Bhagavan ki jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Mati Radharani ki jai. Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande. All glory to the assembly bodies, all glory to the assembly bodies, all glory to the assembly bodies, all glory to Shri Shri Guru Shri Guru.
हिरण्यकाशीपूर्वक्षः शीलतङ्कानकालहये हितो न सिंह परतो न सिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो न सिंह बहिर्न सिंह हृदयेन सिंहो नरसिंहमधीशरणम् अप्रदे तव करकमलवरे नाकाम् अबुधशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकश्यपु तानभृङ्गा केशवदीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे दलिता हिरण्यकश्यपु तानभृङ्गा केशवदीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव
जय श्री भक्ति पद सर्वविनाशन कर सिंगरे भगवान की जय जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय गौर प्रमानंद हरि हरि श्री वृंदाई तुलसी प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रहरे देवी सतवताये वृंदाई तुलसी प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रहरे देवी सतवताये वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सतवताय नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी
जे तो मारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरा न हो
हे तुम्हारा शरणालय तारा वंच
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी
तुम्हें कृपा करे करो वृंदावनवासी।
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी निवेदाना धारो साखीरनु गाता कोरो सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी दीना कृष्णा दासे कोए न मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी
राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदाई नवासी।
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदाई नवासी।
यानि कानि
प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Janika Nisa Papani Brahma Haktade Pranisa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradati Napani Pade
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Janika Nisa Papani Brahma Haktade Sa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradakshina Pade Pade
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Janikani sapapani brahmatari kanisa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki
Jai Shri Vrinda Tulsi Devai Priya Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namah Vrinda Tulsi Devai Priya Kesava Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namah Vrindaya Tulasi Devai Priya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavataye Namah Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to join the service of Shri Radha Krishna. Besides those, you grant me residence in pleasure groves, Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of carry names of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna, please. May I always feel in love with Shri Radha Govinda. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Buddhiparam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paramjayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmaranen Kala Ita Drushitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishamya Jani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagari Shakamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahaituki Twai Vainandatanu Kinkaram Patitama Vishrame Bhavam Budau Kripaya Tabapar Pankaja Stita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galorashrudaraya Varanam Gadugadarudaya Gira Pulakair Chitam Papukada Tabanama Grahane Bhavishyati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakshusha Prabhusha Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahename Asli Shabapa Dhartam Pinastumam Adarshnan Marmahatam Karotuva Jatatatava Vidadatulam Pato Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Guru Trisha Namaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fiery condition of life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully test the nectar for which you're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street, one should be more torn than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? Will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it sure remains so, even if it handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme. The devotees who dedicate a life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretations on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy name, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive about chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai. Pancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubheva cha palitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. De ananta koti vaishnavini ki jai. Shri Guru Vandan Pranam ki jai. Om Jnana Tirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaturvitam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Paramahansa Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam
Sagrajatam Sahaguna Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Vitam Sa Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Nirvani Shivutaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasidanta Dvapaharine Namo Soraya Saksarvaya Gimurtaye Vipralambara Sambode Padam Jayate Namaha Namaha Namine Guru Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Guru Vir Baba Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Rupanevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guratuse Namaha Matarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tur Pangur Mahamanda Matergati Matsarvaswa Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyadvindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shimad Ratnakara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Vihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasara Sarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakata Satma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksavrite Susurabi Rabi Paliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venun Kvananta Aravinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranay Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Tibanga Lalitani Taprakasam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiranjaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Papadasim Yavichintya Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanda Koti Yat Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprupya Pranamya Busa Suktaryam Eva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Bistabilya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Anavatar Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamamyo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti Yaschakti Rasti Kotiswa Siswa Sadari Vibhuti Vinam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Traigunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasuna Praninam Pratifulam Smaratam Upedya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sutesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vitascha Yena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shastistate Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanurupam Abhyasya Chitesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Kshiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti hetu yasam bhutam apitata samapaitikar Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Deeparchadeva Hita Santanam Abhyapetya Deepayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Saroma Kubaha Adhara Saktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yashaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalaviseso Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakaleshan Ejesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanda Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinadaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatraya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vivanti Sancha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakala Grahana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Destajiva Yadata Matavi Bhava Prakata Bhavava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirtati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Gurugoro Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadvisim Tanamapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpatarava Dramabu Mischintamani Ganamayi Toyamamritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivamsi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitada Swadhyam Apichasaya Chasiradibihi Swavati Surabhyascha Sumahan Nimesa Dakyo Vavrajati Nayatrapit Samaya Bhajay Sveta Dvipam Tamaham Iha Gola Kamitiam Vidantaste Santakshit Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Shri Guru Vastaki Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet, as such a spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet, as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet, as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied as by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet, as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet, as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisances under the Lotus Feet, as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet, as such a spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Adi Lila Chapter 1. Adi Lila Canto 1, Chapter 7, verse number today. Verse number verse number 106. Prabhu Kahi Vedanta Sutra Ishwara Vachana Vyasa Rupe Kaila Yaha Srinarayana. The Lord said, Vedanta philosophy consists of words spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, in the form of Vyasadeva. Okay, so we are going to conclude today the unique things that Lord Chaitanya introduced in the progressive knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Now, yesterday we went over a whole number of them, and there was one thing I forgot, and that is that Lord Chaitanya introduced the principle of Achintya Beta Abeta Tattva. So that would be number 15, and number 16 is the conclusion of all revealed scriptures is that one should awaken his dormant love of Godhead. So okay, so this is a very important point because it's a way of analyzing everything in the material world. Everything, from Krishna down to the most minute living entity in the material world, and everything in the spiritual world, is simultaneously one and different. And simultaneously and inconceivably one and different. Now today we're going to hear from a discussion about the German philosopher Hegel, and how Prabhupada brilliantly supplements everything Hegel said, and corrects him at times also, and shows how Hegel was actually a very, very brilliant man in the material sense, not in the spiritual sense, but definitely in the material sense. He was brilliant. He influenced many, many subsequent philosophers and social engineers like Marx and others. He had a tremendous influence on people. But he's not on the level of Prabhupada, and we're going to see that now. But there are certain things that Prabhupada explained in that episode of when he's being presented the philosophy of Hegel, and he's commenting on it, that are absolutely brilliant, way above Hegel's understanding. So, in the Dialectic Spiritualism, page 274, it says, Hegel, this is a devotee, Shamsundar, he's saying, Hegel would say that these are genuine externalizations of the reality. that this is a real table and that these are real objects. It is not that they are images of the real, but that they themselves are real. So Hegel is contradicting things that Plato and some other Greek philosophers, and then after Plato, Kant said. Both of them, Plato and Kant, said that all the temporary objects in the material world are representations of ideal, perfect objects in some kind of spiritual world. Of course, Plato said the spiritual world is static. It's eternal, and you have these perfect spiritual forms, but nothing moves. And Kant sort of implied the same thing. And Prabhupada, however, corrects what Kant and Plato said. So he says, what does he mean by real? For us, reality means that which does and will exist. If this is not the case, it is not real. So in other words, basically, he's quoting the verse, Nasato vidite bhavo, na bhavo vidite sata, ubayor api dristo natas, tvaneos tattvadarsibihi. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, meaning like the body, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the existent, there is no cessation. So the soul is never annihilated. And it was not created either. It's eternal. It's because it's part and parcel of Krishna, and it's never annihilated. But on the other hand, the material body has a beginning and an end. So therefore, it's something material, and it is not the essence of things. The essence of everything is the soul and the supersoul, the individual soul and the supersoul. So this is what is missing in Hegel's philosophy, therefore it's imperfect. So Prabhupada continues, he says, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, there is no endurance, and of the existent, meaning the soul, there's no cessation. This seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. Bhagavad Gita 2.16. Reality refers to that which exists eternally. Now, this is a major statement, and it completely debunks the whole material conception of life that we went over very deeply yesterday. And therefore, Prabhupada says, it is like a dream or hallucination. He says, this table exists temporarily. Therefore, it cannot be classified as reality. It is like a dream or hallucination because it is temporary. We cannot say that a dream is real, although in a dream everything appears to be real. So he gives several examples here. Now this is a very important point that many people, even including many devotees, do not understand. Maybe they might mouth it, the words, but to actually understand it is another thing. Because if you understand it, then you will not live in a way that implies that you are hoping or thinking that this material world could continue, or sense gratification in the material world can continue eternally. So, therefore, Prabhupada says, the devotee Shamsundar says, but isn't there a table on the spiritual platform, an absolute table? Srila Prabhupada. So he's trying to support what Plato has said in the past. Prabhupada says, yes, in Krishna's abode there are tables, chairs, and all kinds of furniture eternally existing. But these things are manifest here only temporarily. So there are eternal tables and chairs and furniture in the spiritual world. if anything, they increase in form and beauty and function and so forth. So then Shamsundar says, which is correct? Does the spirit express itself in this object, or is it that the spirit is this object? Very good question, because Kant is trying to states that there's some kind of difference between these 2 points. Srila Prabhupada, the object is an expression of the spiritual energy. Whatever is manifest, so in other words, what does that mean? The object is an expression of the spiritual energy. Well, anything in the material world is made of material nature, or material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, which can be further divided into 24 fundamental elements of the material creation. The material energy in and of itself is also eternal, but it goes through 2 stages. It's manifest and unmanifest. Even in the unmanifest state, when you cannot see it, it's still existing in a potential form. Therefore, it is bewildering. It's more difficult to understand the material nature than to understand the spiritual nature, because the spiritual nature is eternal. It's always manifest. The material nature at one point disappears, and you cannot detect its existence, but yet it's there in a potential form. Okay, so now Shamsundar is trying to see if what Hegel is saying is correct or incorrect. So he says, does the spirit express itself in this object, or is it that the spirit is this object? When he says spirit, he's talking about the soul. Prabhupada says, the object is an expression of the spiritual energy. Now, that's a brilliant statement, because everything in the material world, which is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and so forth, is spiritual energy. But all those objects that are made from that spiritual energy do not manifest eternally. They disappear at one point. So when he says the object, meaning the objects in the material world, like tables and chairs, they are an expression of the spiritual energy. And another energy, and he says, whatever is manifest is the energy of Krishna, but one energy is eternal and the other energy is temporary. Okay, well, actually both energies are eternal, but one is eternally manifest and the other one is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. So you could say it's temporary in that sense. So in other words, the forms of the material energy are temporary. The energy itself is eternal, but it goes through 2 stages. That which is manifest temporarily is material, and that which is manifest eternally is spiritual. So what is manifest temporarily? Our body is manifest temporarily. Our car, our house, all the implements and gadgets in the house, all these things are temporarily manifest. So therefore, they are not actually, they're not going to be manifest eternally. So it's not that they don't exist. They exist temporarily. Now the Mayavadis say they don't really exist. It's all an illusion. The Vaishnavas say it's not an illusion. They're just temporarily manifest. So there's a major difference between what the Mayavadis say and what the Vaishnavas say about this fundamental question: what is reality? So Prabhupada says the object is an expression of the spiritual energy. Whatever is manifest is the energy of Krishna, but one energy is eternal and the other energy is temporary. That which is manifest temporarily is material, and that which is manifest eternally is spiritual. So the objects made of the eternal material energy are manifest temporarily. Therefore, they're not the same as the same objects in the spiritual world, which are manifest eternally. So then Shamsundar says, so in that sense, can you say that this table is made of spirit, but at the same time is not? So again, he's trying to figure out what Prabhupada is saying. Now, this is why I wanted to read this. This next thing is absolutely brilliant by Prabhupada. He says, originally, it is made of spirit in the sense that Krishna is the whole spirit. And because it is Krishna's energy, it is factually Krishna. You may make various images out of clay. You may mold pots and bricks, and they may be manifest temporarily as pots and bricks. But originally, they are clay. And when they are destroyed, they will again merge into their original condition. There are three conditions: the formless condition, the form, and again a merging into the formless. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna tells Brahma, Aham evasam evagre, nanyat yat sad asat param, paschad aham yad etach cha, yo vishishyeta sosmiyaham. It is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.33. This is the first verse of the 4 nutshell verses on which the entire Bhagavatam is the entire Bhagavatam is expanded from. Okay, so Krishna existed in the beginning of the creation. He maintains the creation, and when the creation is annihilated, he continues to exist. What does this all mean? Well, it speaks to the question, the burning question, or the passionate question that Shamsundar is trying to get an answer to. Is this table real or not real? The table in the material world. And Prabhupada is saying, in a very eloquent way, that by giving the example of clay, he said, there's clay. Like we have clay at the farm, right? You dig 1 or 2 feet under the sod or the topsoil, and the rest of it is clay. A lot of it is clay and rocks. So you can take that clay and put it into water and then separate the dirt and the rocks and the sand, and you can end up with pure clay. Then you can take that clay and make a lot of things from it. Like you can make dishes and cups and plates and bowls. You can make so many other things with it, right? You can use them. And then, just like in India, when I first went to India, there was no plastic. You know, there was always little cups and made out of clay, and then also there were plates made out of leaves. You know, and then you just wash the cup, you know, and then you drink from it, and then you throw it away, right? And it would go back to becoming clay. So he's giving the example of clay. He says you may mold pots and bricks, and they may be manifest temporarily as pots and bricks, but originally they are clay. And when they are destroyed, they will again merge into their original condition. There are 3 conditions: the formless condition, the form, and again a merging into the formless. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna tells Arjuna, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. He's talking about the material creation, not the spiritual creation. Right? Spiritual creation, and we quoted the verse, 2nd chapter, verse 20, which says that Jayate, Riyate, Jayate, anyway, that verse says that everything that comes from Krishna is eternal, whether it's material or spiritual. I mean, whether it's this, he has three potencies. He has the internal potency, the marginal potency. Both of those are eternal. And then he has, and they're eternally manifest. And then he has the external energy, which is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. Jayate Mriyate. So that verse says that Nahanyate Hanyamane Sarire, that the material and spiritual energies are both eternal. But the material energy sometimes manifests, sometimes not manifests. So, but the spiritual energy is always manifest. It was never born. It never dies. It's always in the eternal present. Okay, so he says, so Krishna existed in the beginning of the creation. He maintains the creation, and when the creation is annihilated, he continues to exist. So this is actually brilliant explanation by Prabhupada. And finally, you can understand that everything you see in the material world is not an illusion. It is actually existing, but it's temporary. Now, if you deal with the material world as if it is eternal, that is an illusion. But and this is what scientists are promising. Of course, they can't say that you today will live forever, but they are saying in the future we will solve the problem of death. So therefore, this is like pie in the sky or Akash Mahal, that they're offering some hope that one can exist eternally in the material body, and that's completely wrong. That's completely false, and that's an illusory or idea. Okay, so then Shamsundar says, therefore the Mayavadis would say that this table is Maya. Srila Prabhupada, they say that it is Maya, but we say that it is temporary. Shamsundar, but there's also a spiritual world full of form. Prabhupada, yes, but the Mayavadis do not know this. Okay, so the Mayavadis, they say that everything in the material world is an illusion, and then when someone mentions the spiritual world, it's something they don't know about. They refuse to accept that there is a spiritual world other than the Brahma Jyoti. So what is the source of these? So Prabhupada says, yes, but the Mayavadis do not know this, that the spiritual world is full of forms. What is the source of these forms? The Vedanta Sutra states, Janmadasya, form comes from the original source. These forms that we see here are not eternal forms. They are imitations, perverted reflections of eternal forms. A reflection is not eternal. Okay, so does that mean that everything we see in the material world is an illusion? No. It only means that everything we see in the material world is temporary, that it's going to disappear at some point. And then it'll appear again, or at least the material energy will appear again in a manifest form. So then it says, Shamsundar says, Hegel says that these forms are not eternal, but that the interaction of forms is an eternal process. Srila Prabhupada, a mirage is neither factual nor eternal, but there is factual and eternal water, for example. Otherwise, how could anyone have a conception of water? In other words, whatever you see here, if you say it's all an illusion, that's not true. It's temporary. Then if you say, there's nothing like this in the spiritual world, that's wrong also. There is, but it's eternal in the spiritual world. Okay, so if it wasn't, if there was nothing in the spiritual world, then you wouldn't see anything in the material world either, right? The material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. You see, Prabhupada doesn't give up. I mean, Shamsundar is asking, the type of questions that would be considered gotcha questions or trick questions. But Prabhupada doesn't get tricked, and he's not, he's never off subject. He's always on subject. The subject is that there's an eternal spiritual world, and the material world is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. So therefore, whatever loses, or whatever is no longer manifest, is called material, right? That doesn't mean that it's not eternal. It is eternal, but it goes through these two phases. So anything that is not eternal is what you would call material, all right? So the tree, it's not eternal. The car is not eternal. The body is not eternal. Therefore, all these things are material things, as opposed to the soul, which is eternal. Now, the material energy is eternal, but the forms that are made of the material energy are not eternal. So therefore, they're called material. So Prabhupada says, a mirage is neither factual nor eternal, but there is factual and eternal water, for example. Or you could say there are trees in the spiritual world. There is water in the spiritual world. There are birds in the spiritual world. Otherwise, how could anyone have a conception of water? If there were no birds, no trees, no water in the spiritual world, then you would not have a conception of those things in the material world. Shamsundar. But if the universe is rational and everything has a purpose, this temporary form is also spiritual because it has some kind of purpose. Again, see, he's not giving up. He's trying to catch Prabhupada. Right? Prabhupada says, yes, we are utilizing everything for Krishna's purpose. See, he brought it right back to Krishna. See? Our proposal is to make the best use of a bad bargain. Shamsundar. But what if a person doesn't know the purpose? Is the object still spiritual? In other words, let's say you don't know what the purpose of life is. Then does it mean that everything you're doing is an illusion? Prabhupada says, yes, whether a person knows or does not know, fact is fact. Wow, what a great statement. We have only to receive knowledge from one who knows. So obviously Hegel doesn't know. But people think he's some great authority. He knows some things, but he doesn't know fully the spiritual knowledge, or even material knowledge. So therefore, he's going to make mistakes. We have only to receive knowledge from one who knows. All objects are spiritual, but one who does not have knowledge does not have the eyes to see that spirituality. This is a fantastic statement. So he says all objects are spiritual because they're made of spiritual energy. The material energy is a spiritual energy. It's called apara prakriti. It is the inferior spiritual energy. And there is para prakriti, the superior spiritual energy. Okay? So they're both spiritual. But one who does not have knowledge, well, that would be Plato, that would be Socrates, that would be Hegel, and so many others. They don't have full knowledge. They have some knowledge, definitely, but not full knowledge. So one who does not have knowledge does not have the eyes to see the spirituality. Shamsundar. Then is God's plan unfolding itself everywhere, whether we understand it or not? Prabhupada. Yes. He reveals himself in Bhagavad Gita, and he sends, see, the questions that Shamsundar ask him, very intelligent. And it's every time he's trying to catch Prabhupada or or like asking these trick questions, right? He's sharp, right? Yes, Prabhupada says. That is, whether a person understands or doesn't understand, God's plan is unfolding. He reveals himself in Bhagavad Gita, and he sends his representative to unfold his plan. The essence of things is spiritual, but our imperfect vision makes things material. Wow, that's another great statement. Because of our imperfect way of seeing, we make things material. Okay, Shamsundar. Hegel believes that everything has a purpose, that the whole universe is rational, and that it is unfolding under the direction of reason, the spirit of the absolute. Now that's a good statement, but Hegel doesn't understand completely what that statement means. Now Prabhupada's going to put it in very simple terms. Prabhupada, certainly, only rascals think that there's no purpose in life, that everything is a result of chance. See, so he's supporting Hegel now, right? So that's the point. If someone says something that is similar to what Krishna has said, no matter who that person is, we can accept the statement, right? Shamsundar, for Hegel, in order to understand this reality, we must examine the interrelationships of things. Prabhupada, we are also teaching that the origin of everything is Krishna, and Krishna's energetic expansions constitute everything. See? Now, he's going to make a very, very big statement, and this is why I'm reading this. We're going to come to it. But he just implied it right now. He said, we are also teaching that. What is that? That everything, there's interrelationships. In order to understand reality, Hegel says, one, we must examine interrelationships of things. And Prabhupada says, we are also teaching that. The origin of everything is Krishna, and Krishna's energetic expansions constitute everything. You see, he always brings it back to Krishna because he is Krishna conscious. If we want to be a preacher, we also have to be Krishna conscious. See? So Krishna is everything, but everything is not Krishna. So if you say Krishna is everything and everything is Krishna, then you can take the dog from the street, put it on the altar, and begin to do puja, worship. But that would be a mistake. But the dog is made of Krishna's energy, and two energies is para-prakriti and apara-prakriti. Okay, so therefore, Krishna is everything, but everything is not Krishna. Now, this is what people like Ramakrishna did. He would, to prove that Krishna is everything and everything is Krishna, of course that's wrong, he put his wife on the altar naked, opened her legs, and offered Aarti to her vagina. He would do things like this. Sometimes he'd be in public and he would eat dog crap in the street to prove that, he would shock people. And then when people would challenge him, why did you do this? He would go into samadhi and win the argument by not arguing, because he would go into a state of so-called samadhi. So he was very, very, you could call him a very convoluted person who, and sometimes he'd sit in a tree and say, I am Hanuman. And other times he'd say, I am Rama. And other times he'd say, I'm Krishna. And in the end, he claimed that Durga is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is what happens when you eat dog crap and worship your wife's yoni. You end up with the wrong conclusions about everything. But yet, the Bengalis, they venerate him as, the greatest sadhu of all time. He did more damage to Bengal than anybody ever could do. Right. Okay, so then Prabhupada says, we are teaching that the origin of everything is Krishna, and Krishna's energetic expansions constitute everything. And then Prabhupada quotes he quotes a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto's 20th chapter, 17th verse. Parasya Brahmana Shakshaj Jata Vedo Hi Havya Vat, and so forth. O fire God, you are a part of the Supreme Personality Godhead Hari, and you carry to him all these offerings of sacrifices. Therefore, we request you to offer to him the sacrificial ingredients we are offering the demigods, for the Lord is the real enjoyer. Bhagavatam 5:17. Physical existence is heat and light. Now, this is not the verse. This is Prabhupada's explanation. Physical existence is heat and light, and these energies emanate from Krishna, the original light. Everything material and spiritual is composed of heat and light. One who has eyes to see that which is spiritual can see. And these are amazing statements that he's making, right? So, what does he say here? Everything material and spiritual is composed of heat and light. One who has eyes to see that which is spiritual can see. Well, let's go back to the original statement he made. Anything that is eternal is real, and anything that is temporary is bewildering to people, right? So people get bewildered by the temporariness of things, like their own body, like their hair, like their teeth, like their whatever. So, but here Prabhupada's saying, everything material and spiritual is composed of heat and light. One who has eyes to see that which is spiritual can see. So, everything in the spiritual world, he says, physical existence is heat and light, and these energies emanate from Krishna, the light, the original light. Everything material and spiritual is composed of heat and light. One who has eyes to see that which is spiritual can see. Okay, so therefore, when the heat and light is eternally manifest, that's spiritual. And when the heat and light are sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest, that's called material. Okay? Shamsundar does. Hegel attempted to establish the relationship between concrete realities. Isolated facts or moments, as he calls them, can never constitute the truth, because the truth is the whole, an integrated unity that is organic and dynamic. Now, Prabhupada now is going to close in and make the conclusion. He says, just by analyzing ourselves, we can understand that I, the soul, am existing, and that my bodily features are changing. When things change, we call them material. The spirit soul exists in all conditions, and that is the difference between spirit and matter. So now he's putting on the most solid framework now, that when things change, they're called material. But there's no change for the spirit, for the soul, because the spirit soul exists in all conditions, past, present, future, etc. And that is the difference between spirit and matter. Shamsundra. Moments, factors in the organic whole, progress in an evolutionary way according to the course set by reason, which Hegel calls the Weltgeist, German word, the world spirit. Okay? Now Prabhupada is going to conclude the whole discussion with the most brilliant statement. He says that Welt means world, Geist, spirit, or world spirit, is a person. It's not a it. So Hegel is making it an it. And Prabhupada's correcting Hegel now. He says that Weltgeist is a person. Unless you accept a personal God, there's no question to reason. This is a huge statement. It's a monumental statement. He says, unless you accept a personal God, there is no question of reason. The reason guiding everything in the universe is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Maya daksena pakriti suyate sa characharam hitananena konteya jagat viparipartate. 9th chapter, 10th verse. This material nature is working under my direction, Krishna says. Direction means reason. Therefore, as soon as you speak of reason, you must accept the Supreme Person who is directing everything according to his supreme reason. This is huge. It's a huge statement that he made just now. And there's not much that puts Hegel in his position of a person who has very incomplete knowledge. Prabhupada is complete knowledge.
So reason means like the intent of the Lord in this case.
Yes. Everything is the intent of the Lord.
Yeah.
Right? If he puts us in a material world, that's because we have violated his instructions. And it's to correct us. That's why people go to jail. It's to correct their behavior. Right? So this is a jail, this material world. And in the material world, our tendency is to be bewildered by it. And instead of correcting ourselves, we go deeper and deeper into an illusory state of mind, thinking that the goal is sense gratification, where it's not. Right? The goal is self-correction and realigning ourselves to Krishna. Right? So he says, and it's a very simple statement, but it's amazing. Direction means reason. Okay, so now what does reason mean? So this is explained. What?
If it is the cause of
Yeah,
thing is reason.
it's the desire of Krishna.
Correct.
Right. So that is reason. It's so here it says, let's see, wait a minute. Yeah. Here it is. Reason is the justification for an act or an event. Reason is the justification for an act or an event. So, the justification why Krishna put us in this, why he created a material world and put us in it, is so we can correct ourselves and go back to the spiritual world. That's reason. If we think, no, if there is a God, and if he put us in this world, it's to enjoy it. It's to fully take advantage of all human facilities for sense gratification. Well, no, that's not the reason why he created the material world. He created it to give the fallen persons a chance to correct themselves and come back to Godhead, or go back to Godhead. That's the real reason. See? So, therefore, Prabhupada says, unless you accept a personal God, there's no question of reason. Reason meaning the justification for an action or an event. The justification for our being in this material world is to correct ourselves and go back to Godhead. Otherwise, we have no other business than that. And you can only learn that in the association of pure devotees. You're not going to learn it in school. School is not teaching any valid reason why we're in this world, and what is reality, and what is not reality, and so forth. They're not teaching anything. They're teaching the wrong things. Prabhupada says direction means reason. So in the schools, they're misdirecting everyone to think that the material conception of life is the real reason for existence. Eat, sleep, mate, and defend, like animals. No, that's not the real reason why we're existing. You see. Direction means reason. Therefore, as soon as you speak of reason, you must accept the Supreme Person who is directing everything according to his supreme reason. So that's the verse 9:10. Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 10th verse. Maya Dakshina Prakriti. And what does Krishna say? That he says that he is controlling everything in the material world. It's not functioning on its own. See, it looks like it's functioning on its own, but it's not. It's functioning completely under Krishna's control. Okay, so I wanted to go over this. And how does that relate to the uniqueness of Lord Chaitanya's preaching? Because Lord Chaitanya did not see anything separate from Krishna. He saw everything in relationship with Krishna. Now, in the lecture on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, what time is it now? 7:40. Okay. All right, well, we'll discuss this tomorrow. We don't have enough time to cover it. 17119. So your homework for tomorrow, just read that verse. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 1.7.129. And this connects everything I just read to Lord Chaitanya's unique teachings. Any questions?
Amazing. Even though the same old complicated vocabulary was used. Even though as Shyamsundar Prabhuji was referring to different vocabulary that Hegel uses, but Prabhupada was able to get to the root of
Yeah,
like when we read,
doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Although many things he said, Prabhupada accepted, but he completed them, where Hegel just left them up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, where there is similarity, Prabhupada was able to pin and then say, okay, that's correct, but then this part is incorrect.
Right.
So.
Or incomplete.
Incomplete.
Right. Well, the Mayavad philosophy is incomplete.
Yeah.
You see. So all the Mayavadis are smart in many ways. They can memorize more verses than we know.
Yeah. But it makes sense that if there is a reason, but who's setting that reason? That they don't want to go to that because then they have to accept the personality of God. So
because they're envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they cannot have full knowledge. That enviousness is why they fell down and why we all fell down in the first place. So even a little bit of it is enough to ruin everything. Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, as you mentioned about that due to the material changes, person get bewildered. But in the spiritual world, that things are eternal, so it's easy to understand as compared to material things. So my question is, in material,
because we are under we see things in terms of past, present, and future, right? So the past was like this, the present is like this, the future we don't know. But in the spiritual world, everything is the eternal present. So you know. You're not confused by the past and the future. It's always the eternal present. Okay, go ahead.
So Maharaj, how a neophyte devotee should not get bewildered by the material change, because anything material.
Stay in the association of good devotees. As soon as you go out of the association, it's like a spark in a fire. If the spark flies away from the fire, eventually it goes out. As long as it stays in the let's say, the general area of the fire, it stays it stays like light. But if it falls into the water, it goes out immediately. If it falls on the ground, it might start a fire and continue burning. If it falls on dry grass, then it definitely ignites and maintains its existence, right? So if you stay in association of genuine devotees, you will never be bewildered. It's when you separate yourself that you get bewildered. That's why it's important to come to class every day. You had a question?
Hare Krishna. Is there a difference between the spiritual nature of a chair made of wood, or the drum made of wood, or the deities made of wood?
And
the deity, so
you say a difference
in the spiritual nature.
Different from the spiritual nature. Is that what you're saying?
So the way I understand from today's class, that even a table or a chair has a spiritual nature. It is.
Okay, you know why? Because Krishna is present in every atom of it as Paramatma. That's why.
So is there a difference between the spiritual nature of a chair and the spiritual nature of a deity made of wood?
Yeah, there is a difference. It's that the pran pratishtha ceremony is performed for the deity. And, okay, so not only, just like in your body and my body, you have an individual soul, a jiva, jivatma, and you have Krishna. But you also have billions of jivas. In every cell is a jiva in your body, a unique jiva, but you're the dominant jiva. So here you have two things in every body. You have jivatma, atmas, and paramatma. So, and you have the primary jivatma, and you have the primary paramatma, which is explained to be the size of a thumb, like 4 inches. You say, well, wait a minute. You said that he's smaller than the jivatma. Yeah, you know, we've seen that. Actually, as paramatma, he's smaller than. But in the heart, he's also described as being 4 inches high. So, you know, how do you process all this information? Well, yeah, obviously there's no difference between Krishna and the deity that has been consecrated with the, you know, with all the rituals and things, and invited to live in that representation of his body. So, to answer your question, there is a difference between the deity and just an ordinary object, because of the pran pratishtha ceremony and the inviting the deity to reside. Just like, is there a difference between a living body and a dead body? Yes, it's the same body, right? But in the dead body, the jiva has left, and the jiva in all the cells also have left. But the paramatma is still there. If there's anything left, you know, in the bones or whatever, it's still there. In the case of the deity, so in the case of an ordinary object, it could be a body, it could be a tree or whatever, you have paramatma in every cell of that body, and you have a dominant jivatma. But at death, the dominant jivatma leaves, and as the body deteriorates, paramatma is in every atom of that body, right? So as the body dissipates, so the Paramatma goes with all those parts. So in the case of the deity, as long as it's being worshipped properly, Krishna is not only present as Paramatma, but he's personally present also, right? Because the form of the deity, is made according to the description in the scriptures. So, and then when the deity is no longer worshipped, like for example, there was this Gopal deity in Govardhan, and he was buried for a long, long time, right? And when Madhavendra Puri went there, the deity appeared to him in his dream. He said, "Look, my body is very, very hot. It's being scorched by the sun. And do something to relieve this condition that I'm in." And he wakes up and he said, "Wow, is that real or not real?" And then he becomes convinced that it is real, and he starts looking around and he finds the deity, buried in somewhere on Govardhan. And then he begins to, bathe the deity to cool it off, because he said, "I'm being scorched." And then finally the deity says, "No, you have to go all the way to Orissa and bring me back some sandalwood pulp." So here's an example of a deity that did not disintegrate, right? And the Krishna's presence and as non-different from the deity was proven in that case, right? So there is a difference, but fundamentally, the object, like a tree or the body of a human being, when it dissipates, then you know that the Jivatma is left and the Paramatma is left. That Paramatma was like 4 inches high in the heart, right? But the Paramatma in every cell is still existing. What those cells break down, and they also die along with the person. But Paramatma is present in every atom. Okay, so we have to then accommodate all this in our minds and try and understand that Krishna is omnipresent always, everywhere in the material world and the spiritual world. But there can be different expansions of the Lord. We are also an expansion of the Lord in the sense that we're part and parcel of the Lord, right? So he has plenary expansions, partial plenary expansions, partial plenary expansions, and then he has other expansions like us. So once you learn the science of Krishna and all the different expansions, and everything is expanded from him, even the material energy is his expansion, right? All energies are expanded from the Lord. Parasya Shakti Vividaiva Shriyate. But there are different categories. So when you learn all those categories, you see Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously and inconceivably one and different. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching. But now you're hearing many different varieties of that. So at one point you get bewildered. You say, "Well, wait a minute, I don't know if I can process all this." Well, that's normal. Achintya Beta Beta Tattva is simultaneous and inconceivably one and different. Okay? So there's always going to be something that bewilders us in understanding Krishna. Because when we think, "Oh, now I got it all measured and I got it all figured out," then something else happens because Krishna increases in his potencies, and then it's as if we get bewildered by it. So there's always this competition between measurement and increment. So there's always going to be something we don't understand about Krishna. We will never completely understand everything. Right? So your question, is there a difference between an ordinary object and a deity? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, we'll stop right there. Hare Krishna. All this gets very interesting.
This all Achintya Veda, Veda Shattva is linked to this in that way, right? So, because when we see everything in relationship with Krishna, there is no difference between the material and spiritual. So, for example, a chair, if it is used to serve the Lord, then there is non-difference.
Then you see that it's actually spiritual.
Yeah.
When you see things separate from Krishna, that's material. Yeah. But, like I said, Krishna is everything, but everything is not Krishna. You never should forget that. Otherwise you become, all is one.
In this case, like even the question about like the chair versus the deity. In case of deity, we specifically relate to Krishna, so it is completely spiritual. A chair, if it is, that's why. Is this true that let's say when we're doing pot washing, even though we're pot washing, but if it is for the service of the Lord, it is non-different from almost the deity worship. Would you say that?
Well, anything used in the service of Krishna reveals its spiritual nature. So the pot is used to cook food to offer to Krishna. So it's being used in a spiritual way. You use the same pot to cook a pig. It's different.
No, that's why in the temple,
Everything is used in the service of Krishna, yes. So everything is used for spiritual purpose, and it becomes, then you're seeing the spiritual aspect of it. It's when you use it in a different way that you get confused. Haribol. Who wants to sing? Does Parth want to sing?
Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Shadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandhamui Shabadana Mate
Bandhamui Sabadana Mate
Bandhamui Shabadana Mate
Bandhamui Sabadana Mate
Jahara Prasadevai Evavato Riyajai Jahara
Prasadevai Evavato Riyajai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Gurur Mukha Padma Vaika Chitte Teko Riyaika Gurur Mukha
Padma Vaikya Chitte Koriya
Arana Koriya Mone Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
হারনা করিও মনে আশা
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
শ্রী গুরু চরণে রতি এই সেও তমাগতি শ্রী গুরু
Charane Rati Eise Utamagati
যে প্রসাদে পুরে সর্ব আশা
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Sa
যে প্রসাদে পুরে সর্ব আশা
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Sa
চক্ষুদান দিল যে জন্মে জন্মে প্রভু সে দিব্য জ্ঞান হৃদয় প্রকাশিত ও দিব্য জ্ঞান হৃদয় প্রকাশিত যা হইতে অবিদ্যা বিনাশ যাইতে বেদে গায় যাহার চরিত্র শ্রী গুরু করুণা সিন্ধু অদম জনার বন্ধু
Karuna Sindhu Adhana Janara Bandhu
লোকনাথ লোকের জীবন
Lokera Jamana
আহা প্রভু কর দয়া দেহ মরে পদ ছায়া আহা প্রভু কর দয়া দে মরে পদ ছায়া
Prabhu Kora Doya Dehra More Padachaya
এবে যশ গুষ ত্রিভুবন প্রভু পাত্র লইলু শরণ জয় প্রভু পাদ জয় প্রভু পাদ প্রভু পাদ জয় প্রভু পাদ
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
নমো বিষ্ণুপাদায় কৃষ্ণপৃষ্ঠায় ভূতলে শ্রীমতে ভক্তি বেদান্ত স্বামী নীতি নামিনে নমঃ
Om Vishnupadaya Vishnuprasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी प्रशांत देशतारिणे
Sunyavadi Oskatya Desatari
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri
Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare
Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya
Pada Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jagadguru Shila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Shila Prabhupada,
Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Haribol.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararachikachasta Tarasatara Shri Shimad, His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanand. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Ranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. the lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord of masters, devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Go to Premanandi. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Bring it back. Bring it back.